2.1. Basically, there are three types of suffering. This is taught in the Theravada Sutra. The first type is suffering within suffering, or in Pali is called dukkha dukkata, in its most obvious ordinary form. So dukkha dukkata means suffering within the physical form. The suffering that living being experience, especially human being, when you go through birth, old age, sickness, and death, or disease. These are suffering within form. So in mind, cling and attach to this body suffering. It can be an injury, it can be a sickness or a disease, or whatever sensation that manifests from the physical suffering. So that one, if you were to attach and cling to this bodily suffering, then there is double suffering. That is not only your body is sick, like the Buddha said, your mind is also sick. So when you have physical sickness, when you are aware, you must reflect the 5 daily contemplation that the Buddha has taught you. So you have done that reflection, contemplation, then you can free your mind. Then, although your body is sick, your mind need not be sick. Your mind is different. Teach me, mind is mind, body is body, body never the mind, mind never the body. We choose take care mind. But body is important too, because body and mind must harmonize. We must learn how to make use of it, to live life, to cultivate, to develop the understanding, the wisdom. So all this will be understood. So this first type of suffering is more mundane, easy to come to term with and understand. Then under the 5 daily contemplation, the first three, suffering within the form, the Buddha said, reflect, contemplate. Whereas this body made up of element, it goes the way of nature. Means this one has no knowing, no consciousness, can never be you. If it's not you, then why do you worry about it getting old, getting sick, and die? That's why the Buddha said, reflect. This body of ours, which doesn't belong to us, where it's not a permanent, unchanging entity, it goes the way of nature. It's of the nature to grow old, get sick, and die. For it has not gone beyond old age, sickness, and death. So this nature's law that governs all of elements, all of biological entity or things, they are of the nature to decay, grow old, get sick, and die. They are of the nature to be born into this world. So these are nature's phenomena. As a living being, not only a human, if you live long enough, you will confront them. Birth, old age, sickness and death, disease and sickness, injury, you will confront them. When you confront them, if you have the wisdom and the understanding, you will not be deceived by it, you will not be deluded by it. Because whatever that grow old, get sick and die, and that is born into this world, is not a permanent, unchanging entity. It's not you. Understand this, awaken to this. Then this one, because it's not you, it goes the way of nature. That's why it's of the nature to grow old, get sick and die. But it's not you. That's why you don't have a problem. That's the reason why when Sakyamuni Buddha, before he became enlightened, when he saw the 4 signs, the first 3 signs, an old man, a sick man, and a dead man, he straight away knew he has a problem where he cannot overcome this reality of old age, sickness, and death. Then when he reflected, he knew all of the happiness and joy that the Father has given him has no more meaning. The four seasons, the four palace, all the good life. Where he said ultimately his physical body, which he think at that time was him, he cannot go beyond old age, sickness, and death. Where the attendant told him everybody must get old, get sick, and finally die. Then he said, I have a problem. That's why he decided to renounce the world, go forth, and seek the answer to overcome old age, sickness, and death. But that night, underneath the Bodhi tree, when he awakened, when he connect back to his past, his nature, spiritual nature, then when the wisdom all come back to him and dawn upon him, then he became the Sammasambuddha. He awakened because he realized that physical body and the mind, they are dependent, originating condition, arising causal phenomena, karmically conditioned out for him to come to this world. A vehicle and tool for him to use doesn't belong to him. That one is not a permanent, unchanging entity. Then he realized another nature within, which is the eternal nature, the deathless element, the one that is never born, that's why it's never die, never get sick, never old. Then he realized all this is due to delusion, ignorance. Without delusion, without ignorance, all this is to be. Then he got no more problem. That's after that, he has a lot of joy, a lot of understanding. Then he tried to reflect and contemplate this teaching, which is so profound, so beautiful, so difficult for normal human being to understand. How can he share with the world? That's the reason why initially he was reluctant to share with the world. But one of the Brahma, Sahampati, I think can read his mind, then came now and pay respect to him and plead to him to teach, because he said there are some with little dust in their eye who can understand you, can understand your teaching. Then the Buddha reflected and realized, yeah, there are some who can understand his teaching if they are still alive around. He can teach it to them. So he recalled the two teachers, Alara and Udaka. Uh, but when he checked using his supernormal ability, he realized the two just passed away. One of them 1 week ago, one of them the day before. That's why condition is such, not meant to be. Then after that he reflected. The next most probable one is the five ascetics that follow him. Then he surveyed the world and he knew where they are. That's why he decided to walk. It took him many days to reach uh, the place where they were cultivating. Yeah. Then the whole thing just become history, recorded. Where when he arrived and met up with them, he was able to convince them this time with the radiant on his face and his understanding. Then he introduced the teaching. That's why he expounded the first sermon, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, followed by Anattalakkana Sutta. That's how all the five ascetics, they finally become arahant after the two sermon, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, followed by the Anattalakkana Sutta, the Sutta on non-self. Uh, Before the Anattalakkana Sutta, only one of the five became a Sotapan, Kondanya. But after he continued with the Anattalakkana Sutta, the Sutta on non-self, empty nature, existence, anatta, all five become arahant. They were not meditating. They were just listening attentively. That's why it's possible to awaken, not difficult. Yeah. So this teaching is very powerful. If you can understand, you will awaken. So that first aspect of suffering, dukkha dukkata, I have already explained. So the first three of the five daily contemplation is to enable you to go beyond that dukkha dukkata. Then the second type of dukkha or suffering, the Buddha called it sankhara dukkata, suffering due to unsatisfactoriness of conditioned state or conditioned dhamma. Yeah. Because sankhara is the conditioned dhamma within the conditioned world. Yeah. So suffering due to mental attachment or attachment to the sankhara aggregate of mind means everything that your mind do, that sankhara activity and movement, the mental state, the emotion, the whatever that your sankhara activity produce, give rise to. Could be your feeling, your perception, your content of consciousness, your mind states, all the things that your mind do. These are sankhara activity. So if you deludedly grasp, cling, and attach, then there is mental suffering. So we call it mental suffering, born of not understanding that all of sankhara is impermanent, anicca. That all of sankhara leads to dukkha, suffering. That's the reason why the Buddha says sabbe sankhara anicca, because it's anicca, it's impermanent. It goes the way of nature. You cannot want things your way. If you want things your way, you will suffer. That's why from the universal characteristics of impermanent, you will understand suffering, dukkha. So sabbe sankhara anicca, all of sankhara is impermanent. And because of that, sabbe sankhara dukkham, all sankhara leads to suffering when you don't have the wisdom. When you will attach, you will cling, believing that it's real, it's you. You believe the feeling that you feel belongs to you. That's why you cling to pleasant feeling, good feeling, nice feeling. You reject unpleasant feeling. And then you attach to everything you come to perceive, your loved one, your possession, your whatever thing that you believe you can own. All this through delusion, you attach, you cling. Then when you cannot get what you want, because nature's law goes the way of nature, and you don't know how to arise them. That's the reason why you develop the suffering. So that suffering is mental, born of self-delusion, that condition grasping, clinging, attachment. So when you cannot see all this clearly, especially Sankara activity, movement, the universal characteristics of thought process, Sabbe Sankara Anichang, Sabbe Sankara Dukkhang, then all of Dhamma, including the condition and the condition, is anatta. That anatta nature, you must see them clearly. So that is the second aspect of dukkha, Sankara Dukkata. The last one is Nama Dukkata. So this one is suffering caused by change. Yeah. This is what the book explained. Suffering caused by change. So everything is impermanent or unsatisfactory because they are conditioned arising entity. And if you cannot accept this reality and you want things your way, then you will suffer. Where this is a universal characteristics of impermanent. Because within our condition world, everything is dependent, originating, condition arising, not a permanent, unchanging entity. You cannot hold, you cannot grab, you cannot cling. So this understanding is very important. You don't have, it will condition your misery, your suffering. So this is how the book explains Vipari means dukkha, suffering that arise due to change. But the way I understand it is different because I look at the two. that number two and number three look the same. It doesn't differentiate the two. In fact, number two, Sankara Dukkata is also part of change because you cannot understand the universal characteristics of impermanent. That is basically the characteristic of Sankara. It leads to suffering. So if Parinama Dukkata is also due to change, then these two have not much different. Yeah. But the way I understand it is different because towards the end of my cultivation, before my Monday mind collapsed, I saw this within my mind. Yeah. That very fine suffering must be this one, Vipari Nama Dukkata. Yeah. Means every moment of knowing is suffering. Wanting to know is suffering. Every moment of perception is suffering. Every moment of feeling is suffering. Every moment of every day of mind, even to be conscious of things, is suffering. The mind becomes so sensitive. That's like that time when I came out to the private sector to work after 1989, when I developed the understanding where I wanted to test this Dhamma further. I want to understand what actually is the condition if I continue to come out into the private sector to test myself, so that I can go through life, subject myself to all this private sector activity. Where private sector is not like statutory body or government sector, very relaxed and don't have so much problem or situation that can really test you out. So in the private sector, there is a lot of what they call uh, uh, the job nature is very different. They say very demanding, uh, a lot of challenges, then a lot of what they call stress. They really squeeze you, they really push you. Uh, then there are a lot of funny people in the private sector. Uh, Apart from the bosses, you have your client, you have your subordinate. Then you have a lot of other relationship with people, with politicians and many other things. So you have to really subject yourself to the private sector. Then I realized private sector is not so straightforward and easy. Yeah, every dollar they pay you, they may pay you more lucrative and all those things, but they also demand output. They demand a lot of things from you, contribution and all those things, and you must actually have the work, yeah, for them to hire you and all those things. So private sector is very straightforward. It's not a golden rice bowl. You don't perform, you don't deliver, if the boss don't like you, the next moment he can ask you to go. Of course, you have your right, yeah, as an employee. You have the industrial court to protect you. But private sector is private sector. That's why when I came out, at that time, my mind has already transformed. So the first week, I have to go through the whole thing. Then my nature inside there tell me, if you want to suffer, you continue to do all these things. At that time, I try to read the document. I can't even read the document. But don't panic. Don't go and think after you transform, you become like that. Then you cannot live life, you cannot do your work. Then you start to develop the fear. Like just now, Christy, he thought no more thought, he thought he's going to die, no more breath. Well, when you are aware and you're so quiet, so still, there's no movement at all, just the awareness nature. So the thought always had thinking, am I dying? Where I'm not breathing. um, there's no breath. What is happening? Because the thought cannot understand new thing, understand not? The thought only, that's why it's called a thought respond to memory. Whatever that the memory don't have, the thought cannot understand. They develop fear. But for me, very funny. I have gone through all the meditative thing, but I never have this type of problem. Where it's from the past. So what happened was when I came out into the private sector, I tried to read. Even a letter is not easy. I can feel the suffering inside, the very fine suffering. Every moment of perception that Sankara Dukkati is there. Then the fine suffering is also there. Every moment of perception, every moment of feeling, every moment of even activity of mind, the movement itself is suffering, very fine. Then to be conscious of things also, the fine suffering inside there. That's why the time don't you want to arise your mind. That's why cessation keep on coming. Yeah. Then I come to an understanding. Think also like that, don't think also like that. We have no more reality. The world is the world. Everything is dependent originating condition. Whether you exist or you don't exist, nothing matters. But he know you, he know me. Everything is not what you think. There is no mark of a self, no mark of others, no mark of beings, no mark of life, no mark of them. Everything is within the condition, not real. Within the unconditioned, all these are delusion, empty, no reality. So the understanding was so deep, so profound. That's why it keep on wanting to silence, wanting to silence. But I took up the challenge to come out to the private sector. That's why I had to go through it. So I come out with my own way of doing things. I have to deliver where they pay me a salary. I sign the employment contract. So I have to do my part. So what do? I realize I cannot remember things. I cannot read and all those things. But luckily, my experience helped me, my understanding helped. So I take out a notebook. Actually, it was my diary. I write down all the things that I supposed to know. Means all the factual things that I supposed to know about the project. I was in the engineering field as a consultant, and then later as a listed entity. I work for a listed entity as a client. Earlier on, I was a consultant. So there were many things about project management, uh, uh, things that I have so that when I go for the meeting, I can answer them. Then there are this very high level type of project, with 5-star hotel. The two 5-star hotel in KL were done by our company. So I was fully in charge of one of the newer Hotel Istana. It was and the high level architect, the consultant, and even politician, the client, and all those things. The contractor also very powerful guy, huh? YTL Corporation, YTL Construction. So we were involved in many of these high level, high profile project and all those things. So I have to attend all this meeting and I have to answer all these questions and participate, play my role as a consultant. And I find that I was able to do it despite what happened because I was ready. And then initially I still remember the first week. Every day after the class, not class, after my office, after I come back from office, I realized my mind, because I have to go through all those things, I was not really in the meditative state earlier on because now I have to do my work and all those things. Then I have to write all these things down. But my mindfulness is already very stable. So because of that, I can still be aware and mindful most of the time during the office hour. But because of the amount of work, I have to use that mundane mind, that sankhara activity. And I realize the moment I come back from office or sometimes lunchtime, because lunchtime is a 1 hour plus of lunch break. So during that time, I will go for my lunch. Then after that, I come back, I will read Most of the time I will relax, maintain mindfulness and meditate. Then I realize my mind has become like conditioned into the working environment. Then I realize this sankhara, which long time didn't move already, still start again now, move. Then I can see, why it moved. It was because of the thing I do in the office. Then because I developed the understanding already, I just relax, maintain awareness. I didn't do anything. Then I saw all these Sankara activities settle down. Then immediately within less than a minute or two, I back to my meditative state, the inner awareness, silent, clarity, without thought. Very fast. That's how I came to know. Meditation is very simple if you understand. No need to do anything. Relax, let things do. Then let this Sankara activity slow down and finally return to its original state. That's how I found out. That's how I came to the understanding and also. Then I realized that time meditation is very simple. Well, my daily mindfulness, my spiritual faculty, they are all there. Then after the first week, everything fall back to normal again. Yeah. Then I can do my work. And the work has become part of the religious routine. Yeah. Then I go meeting, I can sit silent at the back, meditate, cross-legged. Off my leg on the chair. There's some of these consultants next to me they thought I was sleeping. Then because there were many consultant contractor, so in the meeting, a few hours, the minutes were thick. So when they come to our section, the two guys, remember the QS and the M&E engineer, the two of them, they were laughing, giggling. Is it this time Theo is going to head it because the architect very fierce one. So when it come to my turn, so last time they used to like push the blame to my firm, kemas pakat. So the architect shouted, no, kemas pakat. The moment he shouted, I straight away answer him. Then the two guys, the MAE consultant and the QS, they were surprised. They said, he didn't sleep. he was awake. That's how I developed all the understanding. And it's possible. Then later on, they talked to me. They said, you, what are you doing actually? We observe you like sitting there like sleeping, but you're actually not sleeping. Then I told them, I do some meditation. Huh? Meditation? What type of meditation? So they thought it's yoga and all those things. They said, you can levitate. Oh, I said, I don't do that type of meditation. That's why there were a lot of strange things happening because society is so different. And you can actually integrate your work career into your meditation. It's not a problem. You can still do your work. You can still do your duty. But most of you will not come to this stage because it's not easy. And most of you only plan to meditate after you retire. That's why you don't have the understanding. While I was actually at the prime of my career, I was already meditating. You know. I remember 1986. 1986, that time I was 32 years old. So I was full-time meditating non-stop. 86 to 89, a lot of things happened that 3 years. That's why at the age of 35, when I was in 1989. So exactly age 35 also happened to be age 35. Then the understanding came. Then my nature become different. That's why at that time I almost want to call it a day and retire. But then I realized, no, my two children are still, so I still need to look at my life because that time I don't have the means to retire if the two of them were to go overseas to study. So I had to wait. So I waited for another, I think, 89 to the year 2000 is 11 years. 11 years. So the 11 years was just nice, very beautiful. I did a lot of things actually, spiritual trip, travel, also. Then I was able to integrate with my career until I was able to become very stable in my ability to be aware, to be mindful in the midst of life, in the midst of career, in the midst of my traveling and all those things. That's how all these things can happen. So don't ever arise that thought you meditate after you transform, you don't have good memory. Actually, that is good. If you don't have good memory means you cannot hold on to things, you cannot cling on to things. But the memory is still there, I can guarantee you. The only thing is you will not be disturbed by those memory. Like the computer, random access memory. You need them, you go and access them. You will not go and hold on to them. If you hold on to them, then it becomes attachment to memory. Uh, so AM, attachment to memory, not random access. Attachment to memory. You attach, you cling, you suffer. That's how your mundane mind functions. Fear, worry, anxiety is a projection of thought through delusion, through ignorance. So all this, you will develop the understanding. So the third type of suffering, as far as my understanding, referring to the one that I mentioned, where you experience it before the cessation keep on arising. That type of suffering is very fine, and you are very sensitive. At that time, your wisdom, your mindfulness is already very stable, and you are very sensitive. The slightest movement itself is suffering. Means just to be aware, to be conscious is suffering. Then even to experience that feeling, that fine suffering within, you can feel it. The movement of that mundane mind, that activity, that itself is sankhara, dukkha, really, the fine suffering inside that. So all the aggregate, you can see that one by one. And every arising is suffering. So at that time, you want to suffer, you continue to use. You continue to do that. Then it will start to develop the wisdom and the understanding. Think also like that, don't think also like that. So your mind just let things be. Unless there is really necessity, you will no need to arise. So most of the time, the mind ceases. You will go into the cessation. You will realize nibbana for longer and longer duration. During that time, I remember it keep on happening, and longer duration. Then it keep on coming out, going, come out, going, come out. Then later on, the mind will stabilize. Then you can work again. You can do things again. But you will not be like before already. You will not become like a workaholic. You will not go and like pork man, go and become like very diligent, very hardworking. Cannot. You work with understanding, with minimal reading and all those things. If you have to read at that time, you can feel. But later on, after everything over, when the Monday mind collapse, then I got no more problem again. I become normal again. I can read book. I can, like now you ask me to read, no more problem. All this gone. It's for you to see that face when it comes. It's for you to see. So rest assured, you will not end up like become not able to do your work properly or diligently and show result. You won't have those problems. So don't have to worry. So this part is just for those who have the condition later on when you reach that, so that you don't panic, you don't go and worry. But most of the time, for those who go through this, they will have the understanding one. But for me, if there is condition to share, I will share. That's why this three type of suffering is very important. Okay.